This is my friend Ed Jordan. We've been friends for 20 some odd years. We've known each other. We live here in the same town.
Oh, long 30 plus years.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, he's owned businesses here. He's a local fixture here, and I've known his story for a long time. I only just now have the probability of being able to put it in a format where you guys can enjoy the story too. So, hey man, how you like my shirt?
I know, I like it.
Gonna have to get you one.
Sweet.
I'm gonna have to get you a 3X. Got a 3X?
3X, yeah.
All right. He's a big man.
Yep.
6'5".
6'5".
6'5".
Just under 300. 2 pounds under 300.
He's a human version of a Bigfoot that you'll ever see.
Right. About as real as it gets. Been called it.
Oh. Well, anyways, so I remember first hearing his story back when he was a young man working with a best friend of mine who worked at the Blockbuster video store. So you guys know we're dating ourselves now when we're talking Blockbuster.
Trey.
Yeah. So I remember
soul, yeah.
That's when the first I heard your story, when I was in there talking to Trey about Bigfoot, and then he directed me to you, and you told me, and I was like, holy shit. So,
yeah, Trey had known it since it happened.
Right. So anyways, what we're gonna do is if you can just tell us the circumstances around what happened, who you were with, the time of year, the year itself, the date, general date, and then the location, and then just kind of give us a buildup of how you even knew that Bigfoot was even a possibility in that area, and just lay the story out, and I might throw in questions now and again.
Okay. Well, let's start with the year. Was 94, summer of 94 to be exact. August-ish, like, rainy time, summer. We were just south of the city of Cygne, fishing the Cygne River. I was at a friend's house, family-owned property, and it was something that we had done regularly as far as fishing their river just off their back porch, and we did a lot of pole fishing up into the point of my first Trotline trip, and all of the times that we would go fishing, line fishing, we would go and spend the night sometimes and fish, early, or fish all night even sometimes, and we would always hear crazy noises, and they had dogs that lived on the property, that roamed the property, kind of guarded, free rein dogs,
country dogs.
Yes, 7 or better of them, and all the nights that we were out there, they would make horrific noises, just things that were, not natural. It was like noises I had never heard before. And Mike and his brothers would always tell me that it was Momo. And obviously I didn't take that seriously.
But clearly, for them to even use that term,
yeah,
they were already familiar with what was going on out there.
They were pretty much living in his world, is from what I get out of it.
Well, I do want to tell you guys,
coexisting together.
I do want to tell you viewers that he and I did look on the map, and we looked at the river there outside of Cygne, and it very, very wooded in places, and it's a floodplain, of course. Yeah. So even the houses that are
we walked woods every time we went to fish the bank. We walked through the woods to get there.
Okay, so very thick along the rivers in that spots, and low lying. So that's the
and not a whole lot of bank either, because the river was up and down so much that you really didn't get to see a whole lot of bank in a lot of places, because it was up quite a bit throughout the summertime. It's one of those rivers that you could spit in it and it would come out of its banks. So
that's the geography that we're talking about.
It's a quick one.
So let's get into the gist of the early morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, when y'all are doing Trotline from a boat.
Yeah, so I finally go the first time and do boat fishing. They do a 2-boat system, 2 men, there's 4 of us. And it was the first time I got in a boat and went up river pulling lines with them. So we got up at 3 and started, loading stuff up, and was on the river pulling lines by 3:30. And sometime between 3:30 and 4 was when finally happened.
So it started out, you said you would hear noises ahead of you, or in the brush above you.
All of the past times that we were there fishing and that we were spending the night. Sometimes we would build campfires and just hang out and
wait for the fish to bite.
And just hang out and have a good time and relax, and then go early in the morning and go fishing. So all of the previous times.
Can we explain to people? Not everybody is familiar with catfishing and trot line. So what you do is you go along the bank and you set these lines up tied to branches and you're trolling for catfish.
Yeah, and you usually put shad or some kind of bait on there.
So anything pulling up that line can get a nibble off of a shad or whatever.
Like some people fish the river and steal other people's lines. They'll go. They don't put lines in themselves. They'll just throw their boat in and take the river and pull up everybody else's lines and take their fish off, leave their lines there.
So what you're talking about...
Sometimes even cut the lines and take everything.
So when you were talking about occasionally sometimes making a fire and kind of chilling, that's because you're giving it time for the catfish to take your bait.
we go early in the evening, just before dark, set it all up.
And then relax.
Sit all night long while we did whatever we did.
That gives everybody a good understanding.
Listening to the dogs make those god-awful noises. I'll never forget those noises. Especially after I realized what they were barking at. Okay. So all those times they had poked at me kind of that it was Momo and playing fun and games. In my mind, I thought they were playing fun and games until we went fishing that morning. So we get in the boats and we're 30 minutes in and pulling up lines, and the lead boat. Now I know what the spotlight was for also. The lead boat had a pole light that had shutters on it. Pushed it up and down and the shutters went up and down, turned it on and off. It was always on, but when the shutters were closed you couldn't tell it was on. So they're talking about the noise up ahead and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
More stuff.
Yeah, here we go. And he said hit the light. Front guy hit the light. I was behind the front guy in the front boat, and then the pole uppers were behind us and we were the stores. And we weren't 2 lines in, and he said hit the light, straight up the river, hanging off a tree as the water runs under it and takes dirt out from underneath the roots. Sometimes the trees lean in towards the rivers, and there was a tree that was angled over the river, and it was hanging off from one arm, feet on the bank, about 10 feet out, 8 to 10 feet out, looking down the river at us. And as soon as the flaps, the shutters on the lamps opened up, you seen his eyes. Bam! And it blinked one time, and the part that killed me the most was how fast it went from hanging off of that. It was more like this, actually, looking down the river at us. But how quick he was off and gone.
So one arm strength yanked itself back up on the
Every
bank.
time it took a step, you could hear stuff breaking. Twigs, anything that was underneath its feet was being crushed with every step.
So
the whole experience only lasted 15, 20 seconds.
So he was a gone Jesse.
He was gone. That fast. One blink and he was gone. And it was the blink and then the eyes. Like when you see something lit in the dark, it leaves a little tracer behind it. When his eyes took up, he blinked one time and took, and as soon as he left, I seen the tracers of his eyes.
So can you describe possibly the way he was leaned out on the river looking down at you guys? Of course that would give him a clearer view. Yeah. It was dropping below where he could look along the top of the water.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
So he was looking at you guys. You guys hit him with the light.
Yeah. I don't think he was expecting the light.
Oh, sure, no. Yeah. But what, if you can freeze that in your mind, describe what you saw in anatomy, what his body looked like.
Dark shadow, but I do remember one thing: the shoulders were like bowling balls. Wow. I'll never, because I was focused on his eyes, and I'll never forget the shadow that his shoulders left from. You know what I'm saying? Looked like bowling balls. Looked like he had bowling balls on his shoulders.
Now, if you guys you guys have watched any of my videos, that's how I described the one that I saw at the Chickasaw Park. His shoulders look like bowling balls.
Yeah, see, the shirt you have on doesn't even do it justice.
Right.
I mean, he's got like regular regular shoulders in that.
Right.
They were very rounded, almost like a silverback gorilla's. You know how they have the big rounded shoulders like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just goes to show the immense pulling strength.
Yeah.
You know, back and shoulder.
Yeah, that's probably pulling down.
Yeah.
Think about all the stuff they've ripped out of the trees and.
So that was your sighting in 1994.
Summer of 1994.
So what was some of y'all's discussion after that? In the boat immediately?
No, yeah, I was gone. That was it. I've never been back since. That was the.
What did your partners say when they're like, "Holy shit"?
Told you. They didn't act like nothing was wrong. They wanted to keep going upriver, and I'm like, "Nuh-uh, take me home."
Here's a 6'5", 300-pound dude.
Yeah.
He's the one who's like, I
Take
ain't
me
having none
home.
of this.
Yeah.
So you've learned in conversations after that now they have known all along that it was there, and that they weren't joking you. Every time they'd say Momo, it's because they had
They
experience.
grew up on the property, and you know, you would have to. I'll tell you, the thing that sticks out in my mind the most is the dogs, the noises, and I can't even describe them. They were unnatural noises that all of these dogs would make. I don't know if they were alerts to the people on the property that something's here with us, or if they were hunting it itself and was scared of it, or what it was. But you could tell that they were uneasy. They were almost unholy noises. I mean, like, you know, something you would hear in the background of The Exorcist. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So what he's describing here is there's people who go coon hunting with coon dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Now dogs have a bay that they do when they're tracking something,
yes.
and then they have another vocal when they've got it treed, and that's how the person running the dogs knows. So dogs do have variations in their communication. He's saying that those things that he was hearing was coming from the dogs themselves that lived around.
Usually from about 8 p.m. on.
So
all night long they would do that.
So they may have clearly been, certainly, dogs are certainly perceptive of what's in the woods around
all
them.
night long.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yep.
So I'm going to, Ed has been in contact with his friend from that area. His name is Chris, and he's a cross-country trucker, and we've tried to schedule it to where we could catch him coming back through this area so that he could be a part of this. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case this time. Doesn't mean that if he's got any great stories to tell about his location that I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna try to get you the address too, so we can.
Yeah, I can even do a Zoom meeting or
get
something and let him tell him.
a lock in on radar. Yeah.
Yeah.
On mapping.
All right.
Google mapping.
Well.
Yeah, and that was pretty much, you know, we went back to the campsite. I packed up my stuff and we left. We went back home, and I've never been back to their house since. That was enough for me to, you know, I obviously, now that I'm older, I kind of understand that they didn't have any interest in us. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like they're coming up out of the Ozarks, following the rivers, and all of the rivers that have personal properties that like to trap line fish like that. It's easy game. You know, all they have to do is walk up river. You have food and water both with you at all times, and take people's lines, and it's free fish. And good fish too. Those are the good fish.
Anybody watching this can just go anywhere and look up Bigfoot reports, and you're going to come across a multitude of reports of fishermen coming in contact with Bigfoots, and some of them involving stringers being taken and stolen, ice chests full of fish being moved and raided and things like that. So keep that in mind with what he's saying here. This Bigfoot was watching them tie off trot lines. Now he knows where the trot lines are, so all he's got to do is come back and pull up a trot line. He's got him a catfish.
I don't even know if necessarily he was watching us. I think maybe he was hunting himself, and he heard us first, and then we heard him, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like he did, because we didn't have any lights on when we were coming up river, and it's a slow troll, so there isn't any noise being made as far as boat goes. So it was.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? When you guys turned the light on, he was clearly laying out and was looking down at you guys. I mean, who knows exactly the reasons why?
What he was doing.
But he
maybe
clearly
he was drinking.
He was clearly fixated on what you guys were doing.
Yeah.
I'm just speculating that, you know, maybe it would be interesting that I do know that they're a lot smarter. I know more about them now than I certainly knew 20 years ago when I had my encounter.
Sure.
About their intelligence level, especially with the ones that we're dealing with out on that 400 property. But now I would be more in line to speculate that he was wanting to grift off what y'all were doing.
Oh yeah, he was trying to get some grub, man. He had probably been eating off of their lines his whole life, or their whole life.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the first time he got caught.
Well, it was the first time. I mean, they've said they've had encounters with him multiple times. It was just the first time I was involved.
Wow.
And I wasn't cool with it. Because I didn't go to meet Momo. I went to
Right.
go fishing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Now I really am looking forward to at sometime in the future doing a follow-up video where I can talk to Chris as an addendum to this story. Here's the prelude or whatever.
It's weird how the human mind works too, because anytime from then on, anytime that Bigfoot or Momo, Yeti, whatever name you want to call him by, is brought up, the first thing that goes through my head are them noises them dogs were making, man. Isn't that weird how that works? How your mind is PTSD. I have PTSD from seeing what they called Momo. Because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it until, you don't believe it until you see it yourself or hear it yourself, or, and I couldn't tell you it was Bigfoot. But it was big.
And it was hairy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those.
Yeah, there's different degrees of PTSD about it. And we throw that out. But clearly, even for myself, when I had my encounter in 2006, I was pursuing an encounter. Yeah. I was actively trying to get it. I wanted to see one really bad. But the PTSD, it's a real thing. Because you think about it so much, because you don't have any answers for what it was and how in the world can they even be here and we not know about it in a more knowledgeable way of what they are.
And you add, all of the other elements of the experience for me, myself anyways, the dogs first and foremost, the multiple times that it was brought up, it was kind of in a ha-ha way, but now that I think back on all the conversations and, it was kind of in maybe he was trying to desensitize me because he knew eventually it was going to happen. As long as I came around with him, I think he knew eventually it was going to happen. And I think maybe he was trying to a
lot of us we're tuned into the response we get from people. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times you're reluctant to say it because you don't want to be laughed at. You don't want to, you don't want to be ridiculed or made fun of. Yeah. So they may have introduced it as we're just teasing you kind of way, as a way to ease it up to where,
that's what I'm saying.
Because they don't want to be ridiculed by telling you what they've seen.
Yep. But he also mentioned that I'm not the first person that's happened to, and that hasn't been back.
Oh, well, then I got to talk to him. I got to hear his other stories.
Not, he grew up there.
I wonder if his dad ever had anything.
Oh, I'm sure. His dad lived there his whole life. They bought. His dad. I'm pretty sure his dad's gone now, but his parents lived there for 50-some years. Man, they lived there a long time.
Well, so if anybody's watching this and lives down there around Lacine, south of Lacine, you got anything happening on your property?
You can basically take that river from the city of Lacine southeast, it makes several S's and bends and turns as it goes out of Miami County. You can take it all the way from Lacine, the city of Lacine, and you can take it all the way to the border of Kansas, to Missouri. And eventually, I mean, if you keep going into Missouri, you'll run into the Ozarks. You'll run right into the Lake of the Ozarks.
Right.
Yeah. So of course, that's the last 10 miles of the river is going to be the most active. They're coming up out of the Lake of the Ozarks and swimming upstream. That's your best fish right there. Every time.
So if anybody that's watching this has any experiences in that general area of the Lacine River, reach out to me. If I can find somebody with some land down there that's got stuff going on, I got a thermal drone, I would go down there and camp and we see what happens.
The park, the off to the southwest side of the city is where their park is, and you can park in there. They'll let you park in there and hit the river. There's a whole bunch of parking spots up in there. I mean, there used to be.
With like a boat ramp and stuff?
Yeah, boat ramps and parking truck. With
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I had more money so I could just do it more often. But
Yeah, it's almost set up to where you can fish from the city of Cygne all the way to the Ozarks. You put your
and drift.
and go just drift all the way down, and then drift and set lines, and then once you get down to the Ozarks, check them all on your way back up.
Wow.
It's pretty easy too.
It's
pretty simple.
Is it a fast flowing river or is it nice and gentle flow?
If it's not raining, it's a nice easy going river. But as soon as it starts sprinkling, man, it starts to get hairy.
Well, Ed,
it comes out fast.
I know I've been hassling you like crazy for the last couple months, but this is a passion of mine, and I appreciate your story.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of information there. The location is good, and hopefully I'll get some feedback from some people.